I rushed back into the studio for this episode when we learned last Wednesday from Housing Wire and Bloomberg that HUD's office closure, that is field office closures, may in fact directly impact HECM lending, not the news that we are looking for. So Housing Wire is really looking at the details of this and also looking at some of the reporting from Bloomberg. Now, we know that DOGE has been quite busy slashing federal budgets, right? And staffing. So we're looking at massive layoffs across the federal government. Now, according to Bloomberg, HUD is planning to eliminate dozens of their field offices across the nation. Now, right now, we have 65 HUD field offices, but the proposed cuts from DOGE would only leave 6. Can you believe it? 6 in operation, according to 2 agency staffers that spoke to Bloomberg. Now, the impacts for our particular industry, that is home equity conversion mortgages, could be significant. Now, the HUD field office in Tulsa, Oklahoma, which houses the HECM-specific functions of HUD's National Servicing Center, is likely to be closed. Now, let's consider what this property is. So I'm going to take a moment here. I'm just going to Google this real quick. Alrighty, so I Googled HUD's field office in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and we see here it's located at 50th East 15th Street in Tulsa. And let's take a look at this property. By the way, this is actually a shot of the interior of this very office building in Tulsa, Oklahoma. So here's the hallways, and then we can see one of their office suites. So this is not the news that we want to hear about the housing and urban development offices that are directly impacting HECM lending, So let's look a little bit further into this. It's reported that according to 2019 congressional testimony from the GAO, that's the Government Accountability Office, the National Servicing Center fielded over 100,000 HECM-related servicing inquiries between the years 2015 to 2018. And NSC staff have also conducted HECM program policy work. That includes administration of insurance claims, which is so important for our HECM lenders, interest rate calculations as detailed by their staff in a reverse mortgage meeting in mid-2013. Bloomberg reports that some HUD offices represent specific work that is not done at other locations. For example, the field office in Tulsa that we're speaking about right now. And that's one of the many field offices slated to be shut down. But here's the problem. If the employees are required to relocate, the next closest office is nearly 5 hours away in Fort Worth, Texas. So who's going to want to relocate or afford to? Is the government going to pay those relocation expenses? How many staff are we going to lose in the interim? Are they going to try to consolidate these operations just to the Fort Worth office, or are they going to have to come up with a new plan? Now, right now, according to HUD's website, general National Servicing Center inquiries are directed to that office. Now, the goal of HUD's National Servicing Center work is to work with FHA homeowners and their lenders to avoid foreclosure. That according to a HUD statement. It also says that NSC staff provide directions and training to mortgage lenders and housing counseling agencies who are then It's also said that NSC staff also provide direction and training to mortgage lenders and housing counseling agencies who are then able to better provide assistance to homeowners. So this is very interesting news. It came as quite a surprise to me that, DOGE would really go this far, right? I mean, they are really taking a chainsaw to agencies. They're going to have to undo a lot of this damage, and I think, of course, there's going to be an outcry from not only us, but others that are impacted by the cuts of FHA and HUD staffing. We'll keep you posted on this story as it develops. Well, this week we got a treat for you. We have a special guest on this week's podcast, Kevin Gutman. Many of you may be familiar with his name, and I've known Kevin for a number of years, but I learned that he's doing something quite different, and I asked him to come on to our podcast here at HECMWorld this week, but really pay close attention, because if you do, you're going to find the golden nugget for reverse mortgage sales. Not the answer to all your sales challenges, we all have those, but a really great way to engage prospective borrowers. So enjoy our previously recorded podcast interview with Kevin Gutman. Kevin, so good to have you with us. We've known each other personally for a number of years, but you've been up to, quite some interesting activities. I'll leave it at that. Besides originating, why don't you fill us in?
Yeah, thanks, Shannon. It's great to see you. Thanks for having me on your show. I just finished a book called A Reverse Mortgage Changed My Life. And the reason I wrote it, as you know, there's so many misperceptions and misconceptions out there and inaccuracies surrounding reverse mortgages. So really what I did is I interviewed my clients and I said, hey, how has a reverse mortgage changed your life? And they just shared their stories. And so it's divided into four sections: eliminate payment, access equity, finance a new home, and then refinancing a reverse mortgage. So it was a fun project, and I did it just because it's hard to argue with somebody's story, right?
It is indeed. You know, they say the best advertisement are testimonials.
I found that to be true. And, these people were so eager. That's what really surprised me, because we took a sample of our clients and just called them and said, hey, would you be willing to do an interview? Almost everybody was willing because they knew the power that a reverse mortgage had done in their life, and they were willing to share their story so it could help other people.
So, what was your oldest client that you interviewed? Just out of curiosity, how many years back did you go?
I only did the last 2 years.
Okay.
I only went back 2 years because, Shannon, the program changes,
Yep.
and I just wanted it to be current, and I didn't want to be digging back. And when I first started in 2015, when the program was different than it is today. So yeah, I wanted to be more current. So we went 2 years back.
So, tell us just briefly your experience in your career in reverse mortgage lending.
Yeah. So I started in mortgages in 2004. I got trained in reverse mortgages in 2007. And there were some things about them I just wasn't fully sold on, wasn't fully convinced on. And as you know, 2015, HUD and Congress changed two of the big ones: non-borrowing spouse and financial assessment. And so I got retrained. I started my reverse career with Fairway. Harlan Akala was my trainer and mentor and coach, and he's trained so many people. And so, in fact, he endorsed my book along with you. So thank you very much.
You're welcome.
So I started in 2015. I did one loan, one reverse my first year, and I just thought it was off to a great start. And I remember early on, Shannon, I don't know if you'll remember this, but I remember early on I was discouraged about just getting traction and getting in front of enough people. And I called you up one day and said, hey, do you have any ideas, any thoughts of ways I can do marketing better, get in front of the right people? And you just took some time and said, have you tried this? Did you think about that? It was just so encouraging, so helpful to me. So I just wanted to personally thank you again for your help in my own career.
Well, thank you. It's an honor just to have input, but to work with reverse mortgage professionals like yourself. You were in good hands with Harlan, a great trainer. So how many stories, individual stories? You have four different sections. How many stories are in your book?
I probably should count them up. It's a little bit over 30, maybe 32.
That's impressive.
Yeah.
32 stories. So I see a huge advantage of your book, and there's some excellent books that, Dan Hultquist, of course, comes to mind, where it really breaks down how this thing works, and he puts it in shirt sleeve English. But then there's a time and a place, I believe, to go straight for the heart. I'm really excited to see how this is going to work, and we're going to include a link on our show notes where folks can order your book. I understand it doesn't cost $29.99, so it's a reasonable price, right?
Yeah. I think it's $2.99 Audible or Kindle, $9.99 on the paperback, and I'm finishing an audio version of it right now too. And to your point, about stories, the beautiful thing about stories is people kind of find themselves in the story, right? It's relatable to them,
Yes.
and it's kind of a way to break the walls down without a salesy approach. So you mentioned about the heart, and I always say nobody ever comes to me to get a reverse mortgage. They come to get what a reverse mortgage can do for them. So
Yep.
these are kind of stories about the outcome, right? So
Yes.
I wanted to travel to the national parks, and I bought a Sprinter van from the equity in my home, and now I can visit the national parks.
See?
That's one story. Another one, sadly, a couple got divorced, and the other one had to buy the other one out. But now they're both happy because now they both have their own home, no
Hmm.
mortgage payment, right? So just things like that about just sharing how, I guess, maybe on the high level, we'd say the strategy behind reverse mortgages. But I always say, too, it's kind of like a fingerprint. Everybody uses it differently. No, there's no one size fits all, right?
Yes. That's really true. Well, and the nice thing about those stories, it's you said it so eloquently. It's not what the reverse mortgage is; it's what it can do. And those stories, I believe, will really illustrate that. Kevin, any advice about how others that are watching right now or listening, who maybe want to capture some of their clients' stories? Maybe they're not an author. Any thoughts on what they might be able to do in a different method?
Yeah, so I know our own company, CTO Financial. Some of the people have bought the book, and they're putting their business card in and say, "Hey, this is my colleague, this is my friend. If you want help, I can help you." Right? And
Right.
anybody can do it. I mean, people aren't going to call me around the country for this. I mean, they're gonna. I'm really giving it out as a lead gen piece to educate people. But anybody can just take their stories and put them on social media, like a case study
Yes.
or a video testimonial. Even here I am at the closing with John and Mary, and they just closed on their reverse mortgage. How is this going to help you, or why did you want to get a reverse mortgage? And they tell their story, and then you put that on social media. So there's lots of ways people can utilize story without writing the book.
Excellent points. Well, Kevin, congratulations. Thank you for coming here on HECM World. And we will, would you do us a favor and come back on the show in the future and just let us know how this book is received by your prospective borrowers? Would you do that maybe later this year?
Of course, yeah, and I'm a big HECM World subscriber. I listen to every podcast, I read every article, and so thank you, Shannon, for all that you do for industry. You've really raised the bar and helping all of us get better. So thank you.
Well, I appreciate it. It's my honor. And thank you so much, Kevin. Folks, be sure to look at the link here. And we're going to have that right on the podcast page so you can learn more about Kevin's book. Kevin, thank you. And we'll talk to you soon.
Okay, thanks, Shannon.
Cheers. Well, it looks like this place has not completely ceased its day-to-day operations. Now, we had reports that the CFPB, or the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, was essentially shuttered in the nation's capital in Washington, D.C., but we have some new reports that show that, well, things are changing and rather quickly. But now Housing Wire is reporting that the CFPB employees have been told, you know what? We told you earlier just to sit there and do nothing, essentially, stop your day-to-day work tasks. And now they're being told, at least according to a recent email obtained by Bloomberg Law, that, hey, we need to get you back to the required work you're supposed to be doing. And this email, by the way, came from the Chief Operating Officer of the CFPB, Adam Martinez, which was obtained by Bloomberg Law. But here's what it says. It says, "It has come to my attention, however, that some employees have not been performing their statutorily required work. Employees should be performing work that is required by law and do not need to seek prior approval to do so." Well, what's funny about that is quite contrary to the earlier instructions they were given, which were reported on here at HECM World. But here's an interesting twist. Housing Wire reports that despite being directed, the CFPB employees, to fulfill their duty, their agency director, Russell Voigt, canceled over $100 million in contracts and halted consumer complaint reporting and other operations. And I think consumer reporting of complaints, I think, is extremely important. He also ordered that the CFPB facilities be closed beginning February 10th. So you can see really the crisscross in directions and confusion. But right now, the CFPB may be able to say that reports of my demise were greatly exaggerated. So this is a complete reversal of an earlier order to, quote unquote, cease all work. Employees should be performing work that is required by law. So which one is it? Well, it appears that this is the latest one. Now, these developments comes on the heels of the February 10th shutdown of the CFPB's office I mentioned earlier in Washington, D.C., but there was a suit filed by the National Treasury Employee Union, and it accused the Bureau's acting director, Russell Voigt, of illegally trying to shutter the agency. But then also, we had a court declaration. This court declaration, which is from Drew Doe, so they're using an alias, says that senior executives shared that the intention of the leadership was to fire everyone but the 5 positions required by the Dodd-Frank Act. In other words, you're going to have 5 people sitting in one room left at the CFPB. Also, several employees who work at the CFPB had sent their messages to their Bureau's HR department, but they said they received an auto response, and it refers to their recent or impending separation or basically being terminated. So this may suggest that there is still a plan in place for widespread layoffs at the Bureau. Now, we're going to keep you posted on this story as it develops.